But if you're looking to launch a business, you really need to be solving a problem in a big market and finding a niche to tap into first. Hey everybody, and welcome back to No Barriers Growth. Many of you guys may know me as the Wholesale Queen of Turkey, but so many of you guys may know me as the CEO and founder of Modestwist. Back in 2019, I launched a very successful modest fashion brand called Modestwist. In the space of 1 week, we sold out our entire collection. We attained retail partnerships from ASOS, Zalando, and Walmart within 11 months of launching. We made Forbes, we featured in Grazia, and we even won startup competitions from the infamous Alibaba Entrepreneurs Fund, Meta, and more. From the outside looking in, you often might think that launching a fashion brand or a business is super easy. One thing that people need to realize is that there is the social media side of launching a business and the reality of launching a business. Social media has often fooled people into thinking that they're going to launch a fashion brand, become a multi-millionaire, and be living the high life. Business is brutal. For every 10 businesses that launch, 7 or 8 of them will close down by the end of the year. I say that to say that in this week's video, I'm going to be covering just some tips that I think a lot of you guys might need or might not know when it comes to launching a business. So let's get straight into it. So back in 2016, I actually had the idea for my modest fashion brand. And despite launching in late, I think 2019, many people had no idea I conducted 2 years of research. Not 1 year, not 1 month, not a couple of days. I became an expert in modest fashion to the point where I still get paid top dollar till this day to give my expertise on the modest fashion industry. One of the biggest problems so many first-time founders make is they'll have this idea, they won't create a business plan, won't create a financial plan. I've even seen this new trend of quit your day job and pursue your passion and your dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, you might want to stick to your 9-to-5 job because you're going to need all the money you can make into reinvesting into your business and scaling your company. Again, social media will have you believe if you have this business idea, just quit your job. The more your company grows, the more your company scales, you need to put money into it. Now, if you quit your day job, how are you going to invest money into your company? How are you going to run marketing, advertising, and campaigns? Google ads, Meta ads, these add up. There are people spending thousands a day on running digital advertising campaigns. But yet you have convinced yourself that by quitting your job, that you're going to start making millions. It's one of the most clickbait, fake illusions of launching a business. When I had the idea for my modest fashion brand, I spent 2 years researching the market. I literally jumped on a plane. I spent months in China screening and cross-examining different manufacturers. I then spent years in Turkey, and my lovely dad gave me the money to open up my own production hub in Istanbul. In other words, guys, I didn't have the idea for my modest fashion brand and then start doing logo design and start manufacturing. I literally researched the market on the ground. I didn't buy any form of online course. And that's another thing. Everybody's selling online courses. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. The money you're spending on buying these fake online courses from these fake business gurus is ridiculous. It's something that needs to be studied. How are you buying an online course from someone that has never launched a fashion brand or a business? The money you're investing in these fake gurus, and I'm not saying all of them are fake, but invest that money into flying to the country where you're looking to produce your products or looking to manufacture. So let's say, for example, you're looking to launch a sportswear brand. Rather than buying some online course on how I launched a sportswear brand and I made 10 million, highly doubt they made 10 million. Instead, save up that money, go on an off-peak season to Guangzhou or China and go and meet manufacturers. When I was traveling the world, meeting manufacturers, meeting suppliers, the knowledge and the wisdom and the insight that I learned among the years was something that no online course could teach me. So my best advice to you, if you do have the money and you do have the resources, Don't buy an online course. Go to the country where you need to manufacture your products. Build those key relationships with suppliers, with manufacturers. And believe it or not, guys, manufacturers and suppliers, they will have, I know it sounds crazy, but they're vetting you. Manufacturers and suppliers, the same way you're vetting them, they're vetting you to see if you're serious. When you go and meet your manufacturers or suppliers, they definitely take you more seriously, they respond more faster, and you can definitely negotiate better lead times. So for example, when I got my first retail partnership with Zalando, I was able to negotiate with my factory that I wouldn't have to pay them anything up front. Right? And I know so many people are like, wait, girl, you is lying. What? Yeah. When I was able to show my manufacturer, here are my retail partnerships, I now need to produce big quantities to give to these retailers. I didn't have to put a 20 or 30% down payment. My factory was producing my garments for me, sending it to my 3PL or my warehouse in London, and I would pay them after I got paid from the retailer. Now, the only ways I was able to do that was by meeting my manufacturer and building the relationship with them. And that's something so many founders, even to this day, have problems with. It's like lead times, negotiating terms, negotiating payments. But I always say to people, start building relationships with your suppliers and your manufacturers, because ultimately your brand will scale and they will be scaling with you. And the best thing I ever did, guys, was going to China, going to trade shows, going to textile fairs, introducing myself. I'm not saying that you guys have to conduct 2 years of research, but what I'm saying is that this allowed me to stay ahead of competitors and allow me to almost like set my company off on a firm foundation and destined for success from the very beginning. The modest fashion industry is worth millions upon millions, right? It's a big industry, but there are so many niches within modest fashion. And if you are looking to launch a business, the number one thing I see so many people say is, I want to tap into the whole market. I want to solve the problem globally. I want to basically tap into all niches and serve everyone. You can't do it, guys. But if you're looking to launch a business, you really need to be solving a problem in a big market and finding a niche to tap into first. So if you are somebody looking to launch a fashion brand and you have been misled by these fake business gurus telling you, how to become the next Shein, how to become the next Fashion Nova, that in itself is a red flag. Nobody should be telling you to launch a fashion brand sourcing the same clothing that's readily available. It just doesn't make sense. And again, this is all, I blame social media, because anybody and their mum is a podcaster. People's opinions are being turned into facts. But someone that launched a successful business, I didn't get to the level of success I did by copying what's already out there. So the idea for my modest fashion brand stemmed from a problem that I actually experienced. So I remember there was a time, do you guys remember? It was, I think, late 2017 to 18. All the fashion brands started focusing on ripped jeans, on everything was backless and sleeveless. The fashion industry became very over-sexualized. And as someone as myself that grew up in a very religious household, my sisters are Muslim, I'm Christian, it was very difficult to find modest clothing from the main fashion brands and retailers. Most people are having to shop between 7 to 12 brick and mortar stores to honestly, guys, find modest wear. Now, even though I had the idea for my modest fashion brand, again, I didn't start manufacturing, didn't want to go launch my brand. I conducted research. I looked at what people were experiencing in terms of problems. So a lot of people in modest fashion had said they want to shop modest fashion pieces, but the current modest fashion brands, they were either really solely focused on Muslim consumers, which I will agree, most modest fashion brands, they're very focused on the Muslim consumer market. So it's hard for me to shop from a modest fashion brand when all you're offering me is polyester abayas that are overpriced and occasion wear. I don't know when the modest fashion brand became maxi dresses and occasion wear, but I knew that if I was going to launch a modest fashion brand, I was going to solve an actual problem in a big market and tap into a niche. So the problem within modest fashion was that there wasn't a lot of modest fashion brands or retailers offering affordable, everyday, modest clothing. What does that mean? Everyday clothing, from jeans that weren't ripped, from high necklines on long sleeve t-shirts and jumpers, from maxi dresses that didn't show too much skin, like this. COS is my best friend, guys. I buy most of my clothing from COS and Arket because they're like one of the only brands that offer a wide range of modest clothing. But again, guys, I launched my business because I realized there was a massive problem in a very big market. The modest fashion market is worth over 300 million. And therefore, I knew even if I was able to launch my modest fashion brand and tap into 2 or not even 1 to 2% share of that 300 million, I could definitely make a profit long term and I could scale my brand. So notice, guys, when I had the idea for my modest fashion brand, I didn't want to execute it. I didn't just start producing or manufacturing clothing. I looked at the modest fashion industry as a whole. I figured out what niche or niches that were in there and what niches still remained. And I realized that one of the biggest problems in modest fashion was that people complained about affordability and the quality of products. Now, I'm not bashing any modest fashion brand. I'm not coming at any modest fashion brand, but selling a £150 abaya or denim wear maxi skirt that's made out of polyester it's just not going to work. Okay, I do feel like a lot of modest fashion brands, they overcharge, but they under-deliver. Competitor analysis. So when you're launching a business, remember, you're going to have direct competitors and indirect competitors. If I'm going to be tapping into the fashion industry, I need to know what are the current price points and where can I come in and solve that problem. My niche was Gen Z, and therefore I researched Gen Z's spending habits. So how much is the average Gen Z person making? Most people who are Gen Z, they're at university. So if I know Gen Z are at university and they're working a part-time job on the weekends, then I know I can't tap into the market from a very high price standpoint. Maybe if I was targeting a more older and mature demographic, maybe 35 and upwards, where that person is more established, they're making 50, 60 or 100K a year, then I know I could have launched a modest fashion brand at a higher price point and tapped into that. But my modest fashion brand was solving a bigger problem. It was solving the problem of Gen Z not being able to find modest pieces from their favorite fashion brands, right? I don't think they even had a favorite fashion brand because it was either smaller modest fashion brands or the H&M, Shein, what else was there? Pretty Little Thing. And those brands are not necessarily focused on modest clothing. So again, guys, even though I had the idea, I tapped into my niche. I understand what my niche had in terms of spending power when it came to fashion. And I also realized what was their problem. Gen Z in modest fashion said they want high quality modest clothing at an affordable price. So I know it wouldn't make any sense for me to launch a modest fashion brand selling, I don't know, staple wardrobe pieces for over £100 because I know the everyday Gen Z who is probably at university, makes less than 28K a year, cannot afford my products. And this is why it's so instrumental for people to create customer profile sheets and to create a business plan. By creating a business plan, you can do a deeper dive into what it is or what problem you're solving, what it is that people want when it comes to fashion, and how you are going to bring that to the market and sell that successfully. And even though I understood my niche and my target audience, I conducted even more research. There is so much information online. Vogue Business is a really good one. Business of Fashion. Like, these are all very well-known publications that give you information on the business side of launching a fashion brand, in contrast to your everyday standard fashion magazines. So I also looked at Gen Z spending power, what they're spending their money on, and how I could launch a modest fashion brand where I was solving their problem and at the same time at a good price point. And it was even little things like knowing that the majority of Gen Z, they use buy now, pay later options. Now, I'm not a fan of buy now, pay later. It's not my business whether people want to use it or not. But I also know that if Gen Z are using ClearPay and Klarna, then I know that I need to have ClearPay and Klarna on my website because I am a modest fashion brand targeting Gen Z consumers. So I have to appeal to their nature. I have to also make sure I'm running competitions, offering something like 10% student discount. And this is why it's so fundamental and why I say to people the importance of a business plan. So at No Barriers Growth, you might have seen me and my team always speak about you need a business plan. Before you start doing logo design, before you start, getting Shopify websites and hiring people, you need to get those ideas that you have and put them onto paper. A lot of people do not really know what it takes to launch a business. And it's only until they write a business plan do they realize launching a business isn't as easy as they think. Your business plan doesn't need to be some 20, 30-page plan. In fact, you probably can't create such a plan because you're on the idea stage. You haven't really got any traction. There's nothing to go by. But what you can do is conduct both primary and secondary research the market you're looking to tap into, really figure out, is this product I'm looking to launch, is it really needed right now? It's called the 3 Whys, and I'll do another video about that. But essentially, that business plan is the firm foundation you need that's going to help you build your business. I always say to people, your business plan is like a foundation of building a house. I would hope many of you, when you're building a house, you need to make sure that it's on a firm foundation. It's the same as your business. I have seen thousands of people launching businesses who don't have business plans, don't have financial plans, and then they end up on social media crying, having public meltdowns. I didn't know this. I had no idea that. I didn't know this. There is no reason why anybody should be on social media saying, I had no idea business was this hard. What do you mean you had no idea? That's the whole point of a business plan. Writing a business plan, you're going to reality is going to set in and hit you when you realize, actually, this isn't as easy as I thought. It's not about sourcing clothing, taking amazing photo shoots and featuring in magazines. Business is hard. Business is brutal. And having a business plan, you're able to take those ideas that you have in your head, put it down onto paper and turn it into actionable steps. And I always say to people, a business plan is so fundamental in both scaling your business, in having an idea, researching it, and realizing whether or not this is a good business. In fact, most of the time, creating a business plan, you're going to be able to identify whether or not this is a profitable business, or maybe, you know what, I'm going to take the L and look at another business. I really do wish more people would conduct business plans, create business plans, because it will literally save you the headache, burning money, wasting time, manufacturing problems and mishaps by literally sitting down and turning your idea into steps. There are so many free resources online when it comes to business. I don't want to hear anybody saying it's hard. I've been researching online. There is too much free resources in the digital world that we live in for anybody to be saying launching a business is hard and you can't find the information. Most of you guys do not even look past the first 2 or 3 pages of Google. The information is online. Information is there. It's just that a lot of people procrastinate. A lot of people are lazy. And that's the reality of launching a business. A lot of people do not want to have an honest conversation with themselves. But the truth of the matter is your procrastination and your laziness is the reason why you're still in the same position you was in 5 years ago, 2 years ago, or last year. If you have an idea, create a business plan. You're not going to be ready to manufacture it yet or source from Turkey yet, because your business plan is going to require you to do stuff like customer profiles. So getting more information about who you're targeting. It's going to let you sit down and realize whether you have the money to launch your business. Your financial plan. The financial plan is still part of the business plan, and it helps you realize how much startup money do I need, or what is the startup cost for launching my business. The biggest things I hear people say is, I need thousands and millions to launch my business. When I launched Modestwist, I only started with, I think, 20 grand. That is chicken change. 20 grand can't do nothing in business. To me, by the way, to me, guys. But I launched with only £20,000. I know a lot of people might be like, that's a lot of money. Listen, guys, 20,000 in business isn't a lot of money when you're scaling your business. But you might not need as much as you think. In all honesty, guys, if you're doing the wholesale route, so you're going to be buying wholesale products from Turkey and not manufacturing, then you honestly don't need thousands upon thousands of capital. You can buy a couple of series, maybe 2 packs of series of each product, maximum 5, I would say, and start like that. Start small. Start with what is called an MVP. Minimum viable product. So what is a minimum viable product? A minimum viable product, I would best say, is testing the waters out before you go into full production or really going all in with your business. So for the most part, minimum viable product could be you releasing one product to the market and getting early customers and early traction, getting feedback and seeing whether or not the product you're looking to launch or the business you're looking to launch, whether this is something you should pursue and scale further. A lot of the time you might go to Turkey, let's say, and source some clothing for your fashion brand, and maybe it doesn't sell. Now, if you was not able to sell 1 or 2 series of products, then how on earth are you going to be able to sell a 10, 20 or 30 piece collection, right? So I always say to people, you don't have to launch a fashion brand with 50, 60 products or a full-on collection. Some of your favorite fashion brands started with one product. Yes, one product. They had one product that sold out really well, and then they expanded on it. Or for the most part, you can launch with around 3 or 4 different products. And what ultimately happens is when you launch your product, you're going to have bestsellers or items that sell really fast or do really well. And then you will expand on your bestsellers. And you can do all of that on the MVP stage, minimum viable product. Test. You don't need to launch this 20-piece collection and some full-on production. Test the market, because by testing the market, you're able to really distinguish, is this something that's viable? Is this something that I can make a profit from? And is there really a demand for my product? And that's why I also think it's a really terrible idea when people are trying to advise you to launch the next Fashion Nova, to launch the next Pretty Little Thing. It's not going to happen, guys. It's very hard for you to compete with these big brands that have millions in venture capital investment. Start small, start with a small budget. And that honestly, guys, forces discipline. If you know you've only set aside maybe £2,000 or £3,000 to buy your first bit of inventory in Turkey, then you need to kind of sit down, create a financial plan and figure out, okay, I have 3,000, maybe I might buy a couple of series that's less than £500 worth of stock and try it out. I then have another £200 to cover my Shopify online store for the year. And then I might have around £200 or £300 to spend on Facebook ads and Google ads for the next 6 months. And I always say to people, give yourself 6 months from launching your brand to seeing the metrics, how much people are buying, what products are they buying, and then expand from there. That's the best way, I would say, when it comes to launching your business. And you don't need lots of capital to do that. As I mentioned, with £3,000 or £4,000, you can buy £500 worth of stock, spend the rest of the money on marketing, advertising, and basically scaling your brand very, very slowly. And I will do a more detailed video because, again, that sounds easy. It's not as easy as it sounds, but I'm just trying to give you guys a simple example of you don't need to start really, really big to launch. You don't need millions or thousands of pounds. Most people start with a very small collection or as small as one product. And I would highly recommend you guys to do that and start with a minimum viable product. When you start getting traction, when you're selling out your products, now you know what, I can now look to buy more products or I can manufacture on more quantities. We're going to end the video here, guys, and part 2 will be out next week. I'm going to be covering more about how I manufactured my first collection, how I hired my first team, how I found my first 3PL and warehousing, why I declined VC investment, and all that great stuff, guys, and how the big retailers reached out to me. So guys, make sure you tune in next week for part 2. The reason why I'm cutting it short is because these kind of videos, they can be very overwhelming. It's so much insight to take in. So I want you guys to soak it all in, implement it to your business strategy or your startup, and then we'll continue part 2 next week with just more insightful information from manufacturing, sourcing, go-to-market strategies, sales plans, and more. Now, I know the question you guys are all going to ask is, Annabelle, please, when are you launching the B2B platform? I know so many people have reached out to my team. You've said, hurry up and launch Source Top 10. We're all waiting on Source Top 10. It's taking so long. So, guys, we have added more features, more AI, more product categories. One thing about me is that I want to solve the problem from day one. I don't want to be that B2B platform that is quite stagnant and taking forever to solve the queries and problems that you guys are currently going through in Turkey. So we've been in a very good position. Although we're launching later into the market, we have a lot of insight in the problems that you guys are currently facing. One, because you've shared it with us, and two, you've let us know what you want from B2B platforms in Turkey, especially ours. So we've been very lucky to take on that information, implement it to Source Top 10. So from day one, we're solving the import export problem on a bigger scale from day one. But I promise you guys, I'll do a follow-up video on Source Top 10 later on, and also part 2 of this video next week. All right, guys, I'm gone. Bye.